Jai Hind viewers, we come back to you again with another panel discussion from MRO Digest. We are coming up with an international webinar on the 3rd of June. So as a run-up to that, we are having this discussion, which is going to be looking at the global reach of Indian MRO services. And in our case, when we look at MRO, we look at maintenance, repair, and overall across all systems, land systems, marine systems, as well as aviation systems. While normally the term is used more generally, only on aviation systems. So as we know, that our economy, Indian economy, is now on the track to become a very, very big economy, which is going to be the world leader. So now we have in India a large number of Indian MNCs, and we have got local Indian companies. Also, we have got international MNCs, and when our MNCs go abroad, we have got them interacting with a lot of local companies there. So both indigenous and world-class systems are operating in India, and we are both in manufacturing and in operations and in maintenance. And we find over here that in India now the manufacturing is coming into India in a big way, and we have our I would say, as a world leader, we are in the case of IT sector. And we have a very large complement of human resource, which is trained in MRO services. Now, with all this mix, there are a huge number of opportunities which appear, I feel, for Indian MRO to actually connect with the world MRO and provide world-class services at in a very cost-effective manner. So, in today's panel discussion, we have got a very eminent panelists who will, I'm sure, tell us what these opportunities possibly are coming up in the near and distant and more slightly later future. So with us we have today Lieutenant General Dr. Anil Kapoor, who served as the Director General Electronics and Mechanical Engineers and Director General Information Systems. He's a chartered engineer. He was awarded the Eminent Engineer Award 2020 by Institution of Engineers. He is a professor of practice at IIT Tirupati and also a board member in their Innovation Hub. He writes and speaks on emerging technologies like C7 ISR and AI in many publications and platforms. We also have with us Maj Gen Ranjit Ghosh, who served as the Additional Director General and Colonel Commandant of Corps of Electronics and Mechanical Engineers, a postgraduate gold medalist from IIT Madras in Maintenance Engineering. He was Chief Managing Director of an Army-based workshop. At strategic level, he steered lifecycle engineering support for Army's capital acquisitions and revenue procurements. General Ghosh has authored books on global defense industries and technological bases and is a strong proponent of disruptive technologies for defense transformation. We have with us Major General Dr. Ashok Kumar, who's a very prominent personality in the media. He writes a lot. He's a Kargil war veteran and is a media commentator and visiting fellow of CLAWS. He writes extensively on wide-ranging subjects with a special focus on China. We also have with us Mr. Pradeep Gupta, who is a technocrat and an ex-bureaucrat. He left the Government of India to set up a think tank, security and policy initiatives, to work for absorption of defense TOTs and improvement of border management. Besides, he is mentoring startups in AI, VR, and AR. He is ex-OSD indigenization MOD, ex-Joint Secretary MHA, ex-PS2 President, and ex-OSD and PS2 Defense Minister. We also have with us Air Commodore DB Murali, who retired in June 2021 after 35 years of service and has worked in MROs for aircraft and aero engines. He has worked in fighters mainly and also flown multi-engined aircraft as flight engineer. He was instrumental in induction of a trainer and fighter aircraft into service. He was key in the reliability improvement program of a frontline fighter engine abroad and has also worked at RCMA. He is a recipient of 3 chief commendations and a President's Award. He is now a VP at GMR in charge of Defense MRO at Hyderabad. So this to this very eminent panel on this today's topic, which we are looking at the global reach of Indian MRO services. So may I have the initial thoughts of the speakers on what are the possible, their idea of this and what do they think are the opportunities? I'll request General Anil Kapoor to please start.
Thank you very much, sir. Good evening to all the panelists. I would start by saying that I think MRO is perhaps the best promise Atmanirbhar Bharat and Make in India has, since we are looking at a life cycle sustainment system. And when we look at life cycle sustainment system, especially in the defense perspective, we are looking at the next 40 to 50 years for anything that gets inducted today. So that is the kind of big window we are looking at, wherein we will have large cycles of technology upgrades because there will be a lot of technology obsolescence. And of course, there will be huge amount of value adds which will happen with time. Now, on the initial, should I say, thoughts, looking at I call it the 7 pillars of sustainment, the first being skilled manpower, because everything starts with the skilled manpower. I think that is the biggest asset we have today with our demographic dividend that we have, with almost 50% of our highest populated country being above 25 years of age. So that is the kind of value add that we have in terms of skilled manpower, which is not only exploitable in India, but what I say is it has a global circulation. I don't call it brain drain, I call it circulation. So there is a huge opportunity there in global circulation. The second big ticket is the infrastructure. We are developing our infrastructure in a very, very big way. In fact, quite a bit has already been developed. And the industries today have adaptive infrastructure. Today, you could construct aircrafts. Tomorrow, you could manufacture tanks. Day after, you could manufacture guns. Day after, it could be an electronics industry. So that is the kind of adaptive infrastructure that we are getting today. The third, of course, is specialized tools. And I think we are a country which has learned jugaad, and therefore that is another important area where we can contribute hell of a lot. The fourth is test equipment. Again, we have a huge bandwidth there. Space is the fifth pillar, which again, I think with 3D printing, and of course, we are global providers today of large number of assemblies, sub-assemblies, and baby components. That's another great opportunity. The sixth pillar is technical manuals, and we have graduated to IETMs, the Illustrated Electronic Technical Manuals. We are perhaps one of the leads there, and that's the sixth pillar. The seventh one I call is technology and data, and I think that is where the crux lies. We are a nation which is giving to the world digital India, and information systems and software-defined systems is our forte, and that is where I think there is a huge opportunity again. So if we look at all the 7 pillars, I think we have a huge global opportunity. Thank you.
May I now request General Ghosh to give his initial thoughts on this? Thank you, General Kapoor.
So the subject of Indian MRO as a global service brings 2 connotations to it. Firstly, it is the Indian OEMs when producing equipment and exporting abroad, what kind of MRO can be extended to that. Second is, if there is a foreign OEM who has supplied certain equipment to us, for which we have developed MRO facilities, and the same equipment is going across to different nations, what kind of MRO service can be extended to those countries from our side? These are the 2 dimensions at which I see. Coming on to the aspects of our own weapon systems, or our own exports are concerned, though we have 100 odd products going to 85 odd countries, but these are just products. There are hardly any major systems on which the Indian MRO, which is established here, can be extended to them. So what actually comes into my thinking now is that within the aviation and defense industry, which is the field which can be extended, which can extend the Indian MRO as a global service. In this, mainly I see as of now, the other industries are still into Make in India effort, where they are coming up with new designs, state-of-the-art technologies to be incorporated into their systems. So this is just the start of our making of systems and how the MRO will pan out once we start exporting these systems at a later stage, and what kind of MRO approach can be adopted at that particular stage. So with these type of scenario, the potential is tremendous. You have all the things which General Kapoor has just counted. All the 7 pillars are available. We have a very skilled resource which has already worked on earlier legacy systems till the current systems, and it can always extend it to the futuristic systems, whichever is going out or whichever is getting supplied across the globe, or which is coming from the globe into us. If there are foreign OEMs who are setting up shops, we have the defense acquisition procedure looking at a separate category totally by itself, which is called Buy Global and Indigenous Manufacture, where you are looking at foreign OEMs to set up shops in India for equipment, part equipment, assembly, sub-assembly, up to component level. He may come up as with a subsidiary in India. He may come up with a joint venture in India, and he may develop the MRO facilities accordingly here. That particular thing may become a part of the global supply chain or global MRO requirements, where we become a regional, maybe a Asia Pacific or wherever, whichever is that particular deployment of that weapon system, and thereafter extend it and link us to the main global supply chain. That is how I am seeing this particular subject as a discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, General Ghosh, for those initial thoughts. General Ashok, may I have your views, please?
Thank you very much, sir, for giving me this opportunity. Jai Hind, fellow panelists. Before we talk about the MRO as a global service, we have to understand that it is not an option for us now. It is something which is, must do, not only for us, but for rest of the world also. And for understanding that, we have to look at the emerging geopolitical construct in a greater detail. I will just highlight, some of them in a very, very brief, so that the importance of equipment in war fighting comes up and is known to everybody. Once the importance of equipment as the singular factor is known, appreciated, and understood, the MRO in any case will fall in place, because for equipment to be kept as mission reliable, it cannot be done without the qualitative MRO support. So what are some of the issues and changes which are happening around? I'm sure the fellow panelists and majority of our listeners will be knowing about this. One is that there is a no-limit friendship which has been emerging between Russia and China. The Russia-Ukraine war has been continuing for more than a year, causing huge devastation to the equipment support capability of Russia, despite being a superior nation, because the entire NATO is behind the Ukraine. Increasing rivalry between USA and China is reaching to unprecedented levels. The focus has also shifted in the Indo-Pacific, South China Sea, East China Sea. And as far as India is concerned, there is a continued transgression across the line of actual control in Eastern Ladakh for past more than 3 years, wherein Depsang Plains and Demchok still remains unresolved. India, in any case, has to face a very, very serious challenge to balance its relationship between USA and Russia. Initially, it appeared reasonably simple, but each passing day that is more and more difficult, and so will be the challenge for the equipment inventory of our defense forces, because majority of them being from the Russian origin. So direct fallout of all this is that the equipment is king to the battle winning factor. And if that be the case, when the equipment centric world has to survive in the coming times, MRO has, to take a very, very important place to sustain that equipment. Uh, while some of the issues have been already highlighted by my fellow panelist, General Kapoor, and then General Ghosh also highlighted that what are the fields where probably we can look at, providing the support. But there is one vacuum which has been left because of the inability of Russia, where then more than 70 countries in the world are having that equipment, and that supply has, dried down not only for India, but rest of those countries as well. And this capacity is not going to be restored in any near time in future. So India has to have those capacities to address the related MRO challenges to its defense equipment, be it for Army, Navy, or Air Force. And the moment it does so, it is already working in this particular field for a sustained period of time. But once it matures that substantially, it will be able to leverage that capacity to the rest of 75 countries as well, should it decide. So that is one facet which is very important. And another thing which has happened, that besides the government, wherein it is focusing on the export orientation of the defense equipment, private sector is also working in that particular field. And it is very, very obvious when the equipment is getting exported, though as of now it is in the initial stages, not too much in quantum and size, but it is likely to grow. Once that happens, the MRO support will be needed in a dedicated manner for those equipments as well, in a very big way. And we have certain peculiar positives with us. We have a positive youth bulge. We have the capacity to develop the requisite skill sets in case we work in the mission mode. We have the huge skill already available in our veteran community, especially the maintenance, right from our JCOs, NC to the management levels. We have unprecedented perseverance and the challenge handling capacities. These are some of the positives which are needed to establish the MRO industry abroad, really speaking. And for this to happen, we have to work a lot to network the national capacities which are already existing. We have to enhance them in the area they are needed in the country and abroad. Besides focusing in the Indian MRO industries, which is our primary need, if there are certain other OEMs in other countries of the world who wants to work with us in other countries also, that should not be a forbidden chapter for us. And while as far as it's being done is concerned, we must focus on creation of the nucleus support in the host country. It should not be the typical of the Chinese attitude, wherein they adopt the debt trapping philosophy and try to spoil the host nation. We should create the MRO hubs, the nucleus capacity, and train the local people, and that is how then gravitate from that stage to the higher skill dimension for providing the MRO support, because its capacity remains too wide. We will also have to develop infrastructure, which was already talked about by the previous speakers, in form of ports, in terms of the airfields, and look at the MRO as a global service beyond the aero domain. Because today the Niti Aayog document was also forwarded, a study report by one of our fellow panelists, Pradeep Gupta ji. But if you read that also, you will find the primary focus is in the aero domain. Primarily because that may be the emerging trend the world over, maybe because there's a lot of money in that. Shipbuilding and the Navy is also drawing that kind of attention. But the main challenge lies in the land forces as well. While as of now, we are focusing on the defense-related equipment, but when we look at the MRO as a global service in the larger perspective for which we are committed, I think we have to enlarge in the equipments related to civil domain also. So as and when we have the capacity to leverage the MRO Digest performance platform, I think we should look at the entire gamut of the capacities being developed and that being provided. And I'm sure it is within our capacity, and we can do a lot. This is the most low-hanging fruit for developing our comprehensive national power to make the mark on the world stage. And I'm sure you will all agree with me that whosoever country gets our MRO support or the equipment support in any regional and international fora, they are more likely to be aligned to continue with our thought process on issues under discussion. So I think this will also open an era of military diplomacy and better relationship, enhancing our soft power further, which is already our asset. So these are some of the opening words and more as we thereafter deliberate on the issue. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, General Ashok, for that spectrum which you covered. May I now request Mr. Pradeep Gupta to give his opening, ideas and remarks on this subject. Mr. Pradeep Gupta.
Thank you, General Matharu, for giving me this opportunity, and thank you, fellow panelists, for giving your opening remarks. A very nice one and very enlightening. All I'll be adding to this is that the MRO subject, as I've seen on the website as well as read the government documents, I find that it's a fledgling industry in this country. We are not counted amongst the prominent MRO players in the world, even far below the Turkey or even other Southeast Asian nation, even below Malaysia. So we have to travel a long distance. So before that, we become certainly what is the aspirations you all have stated is very nice, and we must achieve it. But before that, the small steps have to be taken. So that is what I perceive is that there is information asymmetry because most of the equipment, as my fellow panelists have also mentioned, that we should concentrate on land systems as well as sea systems, besides the aviation systems. Aviation MRO is picking up. I have seen MRO Association also in the website. It was established in 2001. They do lobbying with the government for the policies as well as give MRO advisories to the various partners of them. So there is information asymmetry because vis-a-vis the foreign suppliers who are basically the major manufacturers of those equipment. Then we have to also see whether we or the Indian industry, the MRO aspirants can form joint ventures with the foreign companies. There are like Singapore is a very big MRO aviation hub. Similarly is the Brussels. For land systems, I could not see anywhere, any place, as well as for the sea. So that is where I feel that if there is nothing like that, it's an opportunity for us to create something. Though it is a basically virgin field, what I gather from the internet and other details and discussions, we can create our own or concept of it. There are few companies which are imparting this land system MRO services. One or two Indian companies are there and across the spectrum, but beyond the website, they have not written any big achievement in that. So we can look at that, that how to provide this. Certainly, we are the big users of the Russian system as well as Western systems now. So we can develop or use that expertise of our veterans as well as the serving personnel also, if they are getting out of the services, then we can use them and pool something and come forward and form this organization or render these services to the nations which are having, because every nation is not as equipped as us or any developed MRO countries. So at least in land system, we can be like aviation, the Singapore is there or Brussels is there. That's my views.
Thank you, Mr. Gupta, for those views which you have given, initial views. May I now request Air Commodore Murali to give his initial views.
Good evening, sir, to all of you. The MRO, when it comes to the land-based marine or for the aviation, it depends on the numbers. And numbers always play the other way around. Like aviation will have the minimum and land-based will have the maximum. So when we look at whether it is indigenous or which is we are just entering into, and whether it is imported, it is probably we are getting worked up on a fear factor of whether we will be able to sustain. But what is required is the type of system which we are in, the deep technology which we are trying to absorb through inductions, and also the technology severity levels which if we can identify in these inducted products. Probably we can work out on which field we need to have MRO. And when it comes to aviation, it's basically we get bogged down on the IPR issues, source coding issues, basically mechanical aggregates and the structure we are able to hack it. But when it comes to avionics and engines, we are getting let down, and because of these kind of fear factors. But of late, there are a lot of avionics MROs are opening up, and aero engines still it's a gray area, and people are basically it's sort of high technology involved and high assembly tolerances required and the skill sets. And also the material requirements are too high, and the reverse engineering is always not successful in an engine. So because of all this, the MRO has really not taken off, as I say, fully as a one-stop solution in the country. Now, what we are, as I can see, all my seniors who have been talking about this one-stop solution, in aviation, to get a one-stop solution, it's only possible through a consortium, because one single player can never invest so much into all the systems, especially when it comes to multiple system-based products. So, and today the MRO scenario is in two facets. When you look at the operational support, which what we are looking at as MRO now, is the power by the hour. That is the commercial line, where you are paying a particular customer, paying him off by the hour, flying by the hour, or for that matter, operations by the hour. For that hour, you will be paid, and rest everything you have to take care. The other one is a performance-based logistics. Now, this is something which we are in the country. So, few of our aircraft, when we have bought out a limited quantity, we have gone by the PBL. It's very highly costly. It is into our revenue budget. So this is where we have to, while inducting the aircraft or inducting the system itself, if at all we are importing, we need to have a policy for the government, which government initiatives are very, very good, which we'll discuss subsequently. A lot of changes have taken place. And we have to plug that MRO concept of who will be the MRO for the product which you are trying to sell me, especially when the numbers are low. And when you're looking at it, we should not be looking at India alone. We should push and force the OEMs to set up for Asia Pacific as well as Middle East, consortium. Like if you look at it, there is no country in this region which is so stable as us. I mean, in terms of stability in the region, politically or geopolitically, whatever way you call it. So it's safe to invest in our country. I think this has to be, first of all, driven down to the OEM, and this is the best place to invest. If you can see in the public domain now, the C130, there are only two MRO hubs. One is in the US, one is in the UK. And the third one, Lockheed Martin wants to, set it up in India. So this kind of drive when the procurements are being made, if it is coming from the government, it sets up a big catalyst for the MROs to pitch in, especially the private players. I will stop at it. Subsequently, I will be, because one thing you should realize, when we are competing globally on MRO, we are competing with people of Turkish Turkanic, Heiko, China. The US itself has got 3,000 plus MROs. So that is the kind of quantity they handle, and we don't have that kind of quantity within the country. Even if you take the whole South Asia region, we don't have that kind of quantity with other MROs are handling. So we need to take it with a pinch of salt and then say that yes, it is economically viable when you get into the MRO.
Thank you, Air Commodore Murali, for that. See, from what everybody has said, I think a lot of information, very, very, very good points have emerged. But the fact remains that today the world itself is going through a huge change. But we have been having adversaries on our borders all these years. But suddenly with the war in Europe, this vulnerability of nations has come up, and the need to strengthen has emerged. And with our years and years of experience in this, I think we are ideally positioned to be able to help. Because as it was brought out by Ashok, this aspect of soft power is very much there with India, because being a democracy, and as Air Commodore Murali mentioned, we are a safe country to invest in, and MNCs can come in here quite safely, and they know that their rights will be taken care of. At the same time, a large number of companies are coming into India for its HR. I was the other day in an informal discussion with the person who's handling the entire operations of a particular type industry, I would say, all over Asia, Southeast Asia. And he was saying that while that particular company profit HR worldwide from here. So I think this is a very important factor which I realized is there, and that's what attracting a lot of people coming here. And if you look at this amalgam of our ability to operate, our ability to manufacture, our best HR, our IT achievements, if you look at all of this together, it's a pretty potent strength which we possess, and which can be leveraged into big opportunities. Now, when it comes to the aspect of whether we can become world beaters, I think that has now become well known. Our success in IT industry is experienced by everybody, and we are now the IT hub of the world in a way. And look at the way we have succeeded in UPI. And suddenly, the whole world is now trying to catch up with us. So when we can do it in IT and we can do it in UPI, and we are now moving into manufacturing, I don't see any reason, if the correct things come together, that we could do it in MRO. So now that brings me to the question to all the panelists, that where is it you feel, out of the land, marine, aviation, even I would say plant engineering industry, everywhere where MRO is utilized, in FMCG, anything, which is the part where maybe India should move out and as a global service and prove to the world that yes, we can be counted amongst the best, and you can depend on us. So anyone in the panel would like to address that question? Yeah, please, General Kapoor, go ahead.
Sir, let me start by saying that I think as has been brought out in the panel, the Southeast Asian market is rife for aviation. Today, Malaysia and Singapore are the leads when it comes to aircraft maintenance. Even our own aircrafts of Indigo go here, they fly down to Malaysia to actually get their servicing done. The major servicing is done there. And I think, therefore, aviation, by virtue of the reach that it has as a flying platform, is the first big lowest hanging fruit. And with Charlie 295 coming up with Tatas at Vadodara, I think there is a huge opportunity there which we need to exploit. The second we talked of was shipbuilding. With having built an aircraft carrier ourselves now, I think we are very well postured all along our coastline, whether it's east or west, to come up with major MRO facilities. And with Adani's and Reliance and all of them jumping into this as well, we have big ticket players who can actually take it on. Now, the third area to my mind is when we look at land systems now, actually, there's a huge opportunity even through outreach. And why do I say this? Just a couple of days back, I was taking a morning walk here, and I came across somebody who was an Indian, and he is the general manager at BMW, servicing facilities in this part of US. And he says the whole region is divided into three, and he's handling the northmost region along with Canada. And he has a huge amount of workforce. So really speaking, when we look at skilled manpower, there is a huge amount of opportunity which is manifesting in land systems. And it's in terms of, if I may use the word, brain circulation. I don't say brain train, I always call it brain circulation, that you have some good brains and good skills coming up here, and they get circulated, they attract more and more. And today we need it, given the unemployment levels which are there in our country also. And the fact that our youth is ready to move out, both in terms of their skills in language, soft skill otherwise, and willing to learn and pick up any language. I think there is a huge opportunity there. So in addition to this, one more thing which I'd like to add is the assemblies, sub-assemblies and components. I think what General Ashok Kumar said, even in our own country, we were looking at, Poland, Ukraine, and some of these countries to supply, including Russia, to actually supply us spares and assemblies for very old legacy equipment. But given our own level of indigenization that we have now achieved, and the fact that the world is eating out of our hands for most of the components which are made all over India now, including Coimbatore in the south, even Ludhiana in the north, and Noida, of course, I think there is a huge opportunity in when we look at the nitty-gritty of the whole show. In the nitty-gritty of the whole show, I think the 7 pillars that I brought out, each pillar can actually create a stellar impact.
Thank you, General Kapoor. General Ghosh, go ahead, please.
So regarding the options of which is the particular sector in which we should go in for MRO, as Anil Kapoor has brought out, firstly, I feel the least chances of moving out today is the land system. Shipbuilding and submarine has been in our forte since the 50s and 60s. So we have an indigenous design, we have an indigenous production, we have an indigenous equipment to be exported as a system. I'm not talking about products. If you're sending out a system, you have got facilities established within the country. So they can be, again, they can come back, port themselves and come out of the ports, go through the dockyards, go through the refits and other things wherever they have been supplied. Next comes to the point of air assets. I think I agree with Murali regarding this aspect of numbers. What is important is the MRO hub or the MRO services being taken on by a regional hub or a Southeast Asian or a Indo-Pacific or a global hub will depend on the concentration of that equipment in a particular part of the globe. If we are looking at US, UK to India as one of the equipment diversifying their hubs into, the one which gives itself to this kind of a MRO service is ideally the aviation industry, because it has got civil aircrafts, it has got military aircrafts, it has got certain smaller aircrafts as well. So this is an expanding field because of obvious reason. We have gone from, we are looking at we are looking at about 100 airports. We are looking at 1,000 aircrafts getting inducted. Some will get phased out also. So we are looking at bigger numbers in terms of commercial ones are concerned. Certain amount of commercial ones, once they start setting up facility, they cannot jump straight away into putting on a regional hub in terms of comparing with either Singapore, Malaysia, or Turkey, or whichever are these which have already emerged and which are already emerging. We are still to start. So we are going to be on a very incremental, small step approach of building up this MRO facilities as far as the air systems or aerial assets are concerned. We may look at smaller segments in either land or in air or in the naval assets in terms of looking at assembly levels. We may look at doing the MRO for electrical systems, for electronic systems of avionics or certain sighting systems, that kind of a MRO of piecemeal to start with. We may graduate further. What is our strength? Maybe in the aviation, we are talking about the easiest one is the aeroframe, which has got basically structures. You have got your processes to do it. So that is one sector which you're already comfortable. You're doing it in India. You're not sending it out. But the other things which are going out has to come in. Similarly, as far as other things, soft power will always remain. IT, we are already outsourcing our services abroad. So these things will continue. But as far as Indian land systems is concerned, I think it is too nascent. The government has set a very nice acquisition procedure where they are pushing you for indigenized systems. Once that particular indigenous make comes up with all aspects of the design from the conception till the obsolescence is held with you, then you have all the facilities. Your HR alone can't do the thing. We may talk our HR is excellent, it is specialized, it is expert, it is everything. But without those, we all know, at least as EME officer, that 7 pillars are an essential requirement for that man to deliver. Now, he should have the latest tools, he should have the latest SMTs, STs, he should have the best of all publications, he should not, IP should not be with the other guy who's denying you that particular information. So all those 7 pillars what Jan Kapoor initially brought out has to be available to execute successful MRO, which will deliver and will be certified and acceptable to the global community. So that is how I look at, which is more akin to be given large population, maybe the aviation industry, because it is expanding in the next 10 years, the way it is going. And we are setting up bases now in terms of MRO hubs and other facilities. We are pulling in guys, we're going for partnerships, all those other things which have been already brought out by the previous speakers.
Thank you, General Ghosh. In fact, that's absolutely the correct place where I can now request Air Commodore Murali to speak. He had just raised his hand earlier. So the thing is, with an expanding base where we are not only in India, but we are operating even airports outside of India, and our HR is already there in the management. What do you say, Air Commodore Murali? Isn't this an opportunity where we both manage airfields as well as we do MRO in the aviation, since that is area of specialization? Could that be a place where we could prove ourselves to the world and then move on to the other systems also, which I had mentioned earlier? Air Commodore Murali, please.
Yeah, so if you put it across, I will like to say the previous question. I'll just enter for a few minutes for that. I think all the 3 systems should have got equal chances: land, marine, and aviation. What we need to do is to get a consortium built up, identify the lead MRO players as per the core expertise domain. Like, for example, for the land, marine, and army, for the land-based system for the army, you have the L&T defense available. The GMR and the airworks are available for the aviation part. So get them as lead players, talk to them, and induction, make them part of the induction of the imported. I'll come to the engineers later. And then get them into a consortium wherein you get your startups and MSME clusters also to come into that. Like today, what I am trying to do in my company is that I'm developing a cluster of MSMEs around me who can take any amount of job on their core expertise, which I'm trying to identify by talking to the services and seeing what are the high failure rates, high failure wear parts, high wear parts which are coming in, and what are the places where the OEM is taking too much of time. For example, the engine nacelle of a commercial aircraft, if it has got a crack, it has to go all the way to US and come back. Just imagine the logistic hassle, the size of it is a big engine, and the nacelle and the engine is down till the time the nacelle comes back. So we should develop such kind of capabilities where we have issues of logistics as well as time taken to keep our assets flying always. If you understand that when you are shifting from Russian systems to Western systems, as I told earlier also, the turnaround of the aircrafts are becoming faster because of the high technology, the high data downloading capability, the health monitoring systems on board. So because of that, the services expect the system to get back into line as fast as possible. And this is where the OEMs are failing because of their remote location. So that is where the OEMs has to be told that we need to set up here as a consortium. You select your MRO, we will back him, and then let him make a consortium and be accountable to the country. So this is what I feel is a right model. Airports always should be with that MRO when it comes to the aviation field, whichever MRO should have the aircraft, because that has got lots and lots of advantage to do the flying as well as synergize both the commercial and civil sector.
Thank you. Thank you, Air Commodore Murali. That's excellent. Now, Mr. Pradeep Gupta, please go ahead.
Yeah, what I'll be carried forward from where Murali just now left is that the aviation MRO, though it is tough, but then that is the immediate thing what we can leverage on. And most of the aircraft engine, what I have seen, are being taken abroad to be serviced or do the overhauling part of it. And of any aircraft MRO, 60 to 70% cost is of the frame as well as the engines. Singapore has the entire spectrum right from nose to tail, everything. They have the biggest strength is what we have learned is that they have highly skilled manpower. Somehow that cluster has happened. That similarly for the aviation in India, though Nagpur was being touted, but it has never picked up last 2 decades. I've been seeing, because I was there, posted in Nagpur long ago, And I've been hearing about Nagpur still, but then it has not picked up, and it is still in the that nascent stage. I do not know why because there are a lot of government policies, all these things also play important role. So as far as the knowledge is concerned, we are learning quite a lot and very fast in the aviation thing, because I mean, by 2031, it is being told that the MRO market for only aviation will be $4 billion in India. Just now, it is roughly 1.6, 1.7, and it will be 7-8 years from now. So this is the kind of growth we expect, and 8 to 9% is fairly decent growth of that market. But then that is for the aviation. Coming back to the issue of land system, that is where I think our group can, specific to this group, I am just suggesting that we can work hard to create some MRO, land system MRO, unlike the air systems MRO, where the aircraft can fly from A place to B place. In land system, you cannot bring the equipment here. So our team has to go there, or our people have to go there who are well versed in it. So we have to connect with the best of the suppliers for the spares. Obviously, the armed forces officers have the best knowledge of the systems operation as well as maintenance, and that can be used in that particular place where maintenance is being done for the equipment. So this is what I just want to share with my thoughts.
Thank you. General Ashok, please.
Thank you, sir. In fact, I have a little difference of opinion, especially the way we wish to approach, reaching out to the countries outside as far as the MRO domain is concerned. There is no denying the fact that in case we can indigenize our own equipment, it will have the inherent capacity development also in the MRO domain for those kind of equipments. But the indigenization is so complex and challenging assignment that given the focus which we are trying in whatever manner possible, even if we further focus on the product as against the process, still we will be reaching some sizable status of indigenization at least 2 decades and beyond. And once we are able to export those kind of equipments in the other countries, naturally, whatever we have the capacity of MRO in the country, we can leverage elsewhere also. The another thought which has also been advocated by some of our panelists, that we have certain expertise in certain fields, so we should focus on that and subsequently keep growing and then keep expanding. But I think we don't have that kind of time and on our side. And we have to start big. Maybe there are certain fields which we have the expertise, certain we have to develop. In one of our discussions, earlier it had emerged that even if somebody is, overhauling an engine of a different kind of equipment of 3,500 horsepower, so if he has to do some tank overall engine of a lesser capacity, though both are different equipments, still that capacity can be developed. I think, unless we start the MRO as a global service with a new approach altogether, and in case we just want to go in the incremental way, then I think, there is just no hope. And our capacity development can be really fast-tracked because we haven't focused on the MRO in the real manner the way it should have, because, any particular area to get focused should be able to get the return of investment of the stakeholders and other issues. So once we do that focus, we have to think big, start big and not wait for, cows to come home. That is one way where I wish to say how we should approach. But the second issue I wish to say that MRO cannot be seen in isolation. In case we, let's say, approach a country XYZ, Malaysia, here, where that, okay, we can do the MRO of this particular equipment, that will be a very, very small segment. What is required, we have to have the attendant capacity connected with our forum, maybe in another think tank or maybe in a subdomain of our own forum, wherein that forum can assess the security threat for that particular country, can undertake the reappraisal of the existing equipment and suggest the increment of those equipments which we can plan to export, or suggest with a better kind of overlap it to be bought from other countries, or suggest it to be developed in their country. Once that equipment profile comes, along with that we can propose what kind of MRO support should fit in the country and how we can connect with that country. Unless we provide a whole spectrum of support, just looking at only one facet may not cut that much of ice. We will have presence, but I think our lifetime will go off, and maybe the next generation will also be struggling. But in case we can think big and provide this as a complete package, because that is our mindset. In case you want to get service, you contact one guy. If he's willing to give you all the services, even if it costs air, you'll be more than happy to get it done through him, as against running around 10 and other places. So I think the security matrix of the potential host notions getting analyzed, the equipment profile getting suggested, MRO echelons getting recommended, and whatever we have with new focus, that getting launched is the more approach which at least I recommend. That's all, sir.
Thank you. In fact, this thinking big and going whole hog is what is being proposed by General Ashok. There are merits obviously in that. Air Commodore Murali, please go ahead.
Sir, I just wanted to add on what General Ashok said. If you look at the OEM majors in the global scenario, you don't find them getting stuck to one MRO or one particular area of expertise, or probably one particular player as the MRO. They establish MROs all over the countryside, all over the world, in various regions. How are they able to achieve? Because of their standards, quality standards, as well as their manufacturing tolerances, which are very, very fixed. And now when it comes to our indigenous products, now we are looking at going global with our indigenous products. This is one capability which we need to develop. Especially, should we have a manufacturing agency and the overall agency same in the country? I think we should not. We should look at outsourcing this indigenous products, even if it is made by a PSU or, for that matter, government control. Let it be given to a private player who will develop and bring in more and more technologies with adding on with his capabilities. And there will be a reverse flow onto the designers who can develop their own product further. So this is one area which we should always look at, that we should diversify and make everybody come in and join together in the country.
Thank you, Air Commodore Murali. Mr. Pradeep Gupta, please go ahead.
Yeah. I just wanted to mention something about the indigenization process. A lot of mentions are being made about the indigenization efforts of the government and the Ministry of Defense and the PSUs, private sector. I would just request that we can do some fact check that since these lists have been advertised 3 years ago or 2.5 years ago, the items which were initiated in the first list, how many of them have reached the 100% or even the 75% stage on date? So that is very easy to say that the list is there, indigenization is on, indigenization Atmanirbhar ho gaya. That is only verbal assurance. So we should not bank everything that we are able to make indigenously. But yes, nevertheless, I have great confidence in the Indian private sector rather than anybody else. So they can do wonders, and they do it mostly on their own. Air Commodore Murali will tell that Hyderabad-Secunderabad belt is getting ahead of all these things. All the major aviation country aircraft majors in the world try to look on that in that region for the various parts. So one is that you make this pair, but in the MRO, if you are servicing an equipment, that knowledge is slightly different when you assemble all those components and then see the performance. So that's the more hands-on knowledge and the practical knowledge is required. That kind of knowledge is only, I would say, available with the officers of the armed forces for the respective equipments, what they have operated in their career, as well as for the aviation you have in the civil side. But then civil side is restricted to the passenger aircraft, not to the fighter aircraft. So this is one difference is there. But then we have to more bank our efforts in the skill what we have. Our people have the knowledge about it, because sourcing components, yes, certainly we'll prefer to source components from India, but then everything may not be available or to the acceptable standards to that company. So we have to get it from outside. Like, so there are slightly differences is there, but then certainly everybody is agreeing to that. The knowledge is available, skill is available. The first thing we must, and we can organize training for the MRO personnel, the education part of it, because that is extreme dearth of it. The Air Force engineers who are well versed with the engine overhauling, they can come up with the some at least initial or second stage exposure lessons. Similarly for the land systems, at least for the new entrants in this sector, we can take up those chapters to carry forward. Thank you.
Yes, you touched upon, thank you. You touched upon some very important aspects. Of course, progress on these complex issues does take time. But as long as you are moving in any direction, I feel that things start working, and I think persistence and consistency does pay. And in MRO Digest forums, we'll keep on providing platform to MRO professionals to look at the opportunities and share their wisdom. That's the purpose of this whole forum. General Kapoor, please go ahead.
Thank you. I would agree with General Ashok that what we need is a transformational change. Over a period of time, we didn't call it Atmanirbhar Bharat, but we were in that direction. We didn't call it Make in India, but we were in that direction. And now the focus of the government has become much more pronounced. If I may say, the focus light is actually on Atmanirbhar, Make in India, startups, Digital India, and all that. Because of that kind of a spotlight that has happened, we are now in a stage when we need to be create dividends in a short time. I mean, that is the impulse function we have to create. MRO has to become an impulse function. That's the first thought. The second, I agree with Air Commodore Murali that production lines and MRO lines are two different things. In fact, we have seen in our own service, when a production agency does MRO, they do it like an assembly line of a new equipment. Actually, they go ahead and change everything. They do not optimize systems and subsystems the way a MRO agency does. And when we look at the MRO, it is not only overhaul. Perhaps our focus is more on overhaul. I think the M and R are big tickets, especially when it comes to equipment which is of a civil use. O is more pronounced in defense because we go beyond the useful life of an equipment. A useful life may be 20 to 25 years. We'd like to take it to 50 years. So we upgrade and overhaul to give it a new lease of life. Whereas in the civil parlance, you dump it moment it is done, and you scrap it, and you get into waste management to optimize the residual value of the disposed item. So their M and R are very pronounced. And when you look at M and R, the two big tickets are basically your skilled manpower and your space. These are the two components which really get highlighted. Now let me take a washing machine or a refrigerator, which is a FMCG item, and most of us, almost every house today has it, or a television. I mean, today, the moment your TV doesn't work or your washing machine doesn't work, all you do is make a call to the OEM, and he puts you through to some subject matter expert who's actually a mechanic also. And he tells you switch off, switch on, do 1, 2, 3, 4. And if it is still not happening, I'm coming. And he does it. So that is the subtotal of M and R that is happening today when it comes to these things. So really speaking, when we are looking at global MRO, we have to look at these two tickets largely. How do you export this ticket? And what Air Commodore Murali mentioned, and I'm also aware that a lot of MSMEs and in tier 2 and tier 3 have come up, a lot of them who are harnessing the power of baby components, baby assemblies, sub-assemblies, and a lot of 3D printing they do to meet the requirements of the OEMs who find it easy to outsource this kind of a job. So that is one set of opportunities in MRO. So MR for civil and MRO when we look at defense. Now, the issue is, why should a country unless we have exported some stuff there. As an example, today we are exporting Akash missiles, we are exporting ATAGs and others. I think these are the opportunities where the OEMs, whether it is Bharat Forge or whether it is Tata's or whether it is L&T looking at, they have to look at a MRO specialist who actually steers the MRO activity in these countries. Today, we are the lead when it comes to technologies, emerging technologies. I mean, and I'm talking of condition-based monitoring. That's been a subject which is very close to my heart. And I always feel that sensors, IoT, and embedded software is our forte. Software on chips is the Indian forte. I think we need to harness this so that we are able to carry out a lot of modifications, which is the Israel model. Israel takes the equipment, they modify it, value added so much that it becomes easy to sustain and maintain. I think that is the opportunity we should exploit as a nation to create, pick up legacy and create the next gen MRO abilities in that, where like I discussed with you once, we have to humanize assets. I think that can be our forte, and we need to do it sooner than later, because the time is coming into software defined systems. We have software defined radios, we have software defined vehicles, we got software defined satellites. We're going to get, everything is getting software defined, and that's an area where a new form of MRO has to emerge, and maybe we can be the lead there, because not very many are thinking that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Anil Kapoor. You have highlighted opportunities and you have also shown a little bit window into the future. And now for this first round of this first question, the last speaker, General Ghosh, please go ahead. And after that, I will come with the next query. General Ghosh, please.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I partly agree with all the speakers and partly don't. Starting with General Ashok, while we would love to go in for a complete approach of pushing things, but we have to be cautious because of primarily quality reasons. We may be able to just push for the aviation industry for this decade, 21 to 23 to 33. We may look at naval systems from around 27 to 37. We may wait for the Indian systems to come in. The development cycle may be today 12, 14, 16, 18 years, but the way the push is going now, we are going to have much telescoped development cycles coming in as far as Indian manufacture is concerned. And the whole thing is to push in reliability, which is so critical. Similarly, if you are in a land system where you're not so good at the MRO in terms of quality certification abroad, then don't go in for it immediately till you have all the systems in place. That is one part. Second part, coming on to Pradeep Gupta's point of how many have seen the light of the day in the first positive indigenization list or negative import list, erstwhile being called, is not the question. The question is, we got our system wrong right from day one. There was indigenization is supposed to set in from the day the equipment comes into your lab. We never went in for it. We have delayed indigenization across all foreign OEM supplied sources. We have still been pushing for foreign acquisitions. Yes, it is the easiest to get, it is the fastest to get, but it does not give you self-reliance, it does not give you self-sufficiency, it does not give you strategic autonomy, which is very clear. So with that as the backdrop, I think Murali has given a very good, got colluded by Anil Kapoor. The two lines are very different. The OEM production line and MRO line have got specific purposes. But what he brought out was very good, which he says when you start looking at a MRO, it is much later. As Anil Kapoor brought it, maybe 40 years, 50 years of a life cycle of a major weapon platform. So by that time, this MRO agency is looking at technology insertion. And that's why he cannot be the production agency who is just produce the equipment and thereafter he has to change the production line to a different production line. So that's a very good point which has come in where it has to be there. But at the end of it, what I feel is that we have to look at a comprehensive solution to this whole problem. We have to look at telescoped development cycles. Thereafter, we have to look at getting the right quality and the export to be supplied and supported wholeheartedly. In the interim, you go for setting up global MROs, getting into you improving your sort of MRO capabilities within and becoming a regional hub to get the required experience, technology, and collaboration in terms of partnerships getting built with these specialist OEMs of different class of equipment. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Anil Ghosh. It's you have given a realistic way forward. You have looked at this as you brought up this aspect of telescoping. You are looking at the, you have, I think, in your paraphrasing what you said, you have looked at the increasing pace of change of technology. So the increasing pace of change of technology is making the whole world get into a new mode. That is a catch-up mode. We recently had this chat GPT coming out, and everybody's trying to catch up with it. So now I think the technology cycle has become so sharp that almost everybody is now catching up. So what that does is, when everything is up in the air, it throws you opportunities. And the good old management technique of a SWOT. Over here, our strengths, if they can get linked to the opportunities, I think General Kapoor has hinted towards it already in what he said. So that frames my next question, which I will now proceed to. And the next question is that in the changing technology cycles, the faster pace of change, there are new emerging technology, a term which General Kapoor used, and changing technology, which I am saying. For example, in automotive, we are moving. The idea, for example, specifically, if you want to make an ICE engine, internal combustion engine, which is world class today, it will be a real uphill task. Everybody can't do it. The issue of design, material, so many things come in, and you will not be able to pack an world-class engine no matter how much you try. But when it comes to an electric drive, you may be able to do it. Suddenly, you now can emerge as a leader. So what the next question is, specifically, I would request the panelists to talk about emerging technologies, toward changing technologies, and not legacy technologies. And if they can, in their wisdom, can give suggestions to our industrialists, our people, that what are the opportunities in their wisdom in this new environment where we could, pitchfork ourselves. The word is to pitchfork into being world leaders, taking advantage of the changing technology milieu. So, Mr. Pradeep Gupta, I'll request you to start with that, but I'll request you to answer this particular thing which I am asking. Go ahead.
In the end, I'll add to what General Ghosh has told, but then I am first speaking on this new technologies, what you have mentioned. This is because what I was going to tell, what General Ghosh has told, is linked to this. India is very good in the soft technologies, especially the AI, VR, AR, etc. I don't say that we are superb in AI, because there are countries which are quite ahead of us. But since I'm interacting with those chaps, but nevertheless, we are one of the foremost countries. Now, that is where I would suggest that we should leverage, rather than setting a big plant to manufacture nickel superalloy blades, etc., because that will, or even the fab, what is being tried right now. Applying these new technologies, once I mentioned in one of the forums in this MRO Digest or some other panel discussion or something, that we can use the virtual reality tools to devise the design of that spare after simulating it on a system, and then do the trials of it, and then try to freeze the design drawings of it. This particular technology can be used by the MSME. The major problem the indigenization industry is facing is the failure of the components what they make. Even if they get the order, say 10 industry get the order, only 3-4 succeed finally in actually satisfying the defense services. I'm talking only of defense services. So that because the criteria is very, very stringent. So we can use those new technologies, and there are umpteen number of technologies coming up every, I would say, a week or month to try these and design a new equipment. Like the Bell helicopter had used this virtual reality tool to freeze the design of the helicopter they reduced the time from 6-7 years to 2 years. So this is what we can play with and put this at the disposal of. So we have to do hand-holding of the industry, MSME especially, or the government has to, if government does this work, that is wonderful. So new technologies are coming up. We can use the AI to come to some conclusion by putting some iterative process, some data into it. Like if you see an MRO, a lot of data is being generated about the aircraft usage, the equipment usage. What Murali has very rightly told, we can put, and it was also told that sensors we put there and collect data and then put the algorithm. Several algorithms are publicly available in public domain. So I don't have to even develop them. So we can use our data to come up with this better prediction and better analysis. So this is what I just want to mention.
Thank you. In fact, there are challenges, and you have put in efforts, and that is commendable. And with that, only results will start appearing. General Kapoor, go ahead, please.
Let me start with the emerging technology, since that is the flavor of the question. Now, let's look at, and I marvel always Israel, because they come up with something very unique. I think, look at it, we all use printers for printing paper. They use a printer for removing printing and reusing the paper. In fact, they feel all paper, the research is that all papers can be used 12 times and printed over 12 times. And since, climate change, forestation, and use of paper is the most critical thing, their research has gone into create reverse printing. So I would say when we look at emerging technologies, actually we often look at the tip of the iceberg. When we look at condition monitoring, AR, VR, there is a lot available, but there's a lot of research to be done. In fact, in Israel, a lot of academia industry interface goes on, and most of their CSR is actually deployed in professional activities. Unlike ours, where we use it at other places, in their case, 80% of their CSR effort of the industry is into future technologies. I think, therefore, when we look at a future perspective, whether it is MRO, whether it is production, whether it is engines, whether it is ICE, whether it is EVs, the first step is invest in research with a focus. I think we need to have a very well-defined focus. Even in US, there are 7 areas of focus very clearly laid out by the government. And we have a National Technology Day. I know we're going to do some talk on that day. But my point is that I've always been saying on National Technology Day, firstly, let's have a focus of the Technology Development Board. There's a board. What is the focus? Everywhere, if everything is a focus, then nothing is on your focus. Let's have some 7 to 10 programs which are pursued as pencil beams. And we create a niche in a quantifiable time frame. Whether it is quantum, we're launching quantum mission, this mission, but the point is, and there is huge amount of excitement, but I'm saying when we look at deliverables and specifics, we have to be pencil beam at it and create programs like our Cmde started 80s, continues to deliver. We need to look at such long-term programs as a nation to be able to create the niche and to make the difference. So I would say, firstly, we need to invest heavily on research and innovation. I mean, in MIT, there is a new, it's not new any longer, but they've opened something called the Engine. It's a tough tech kind of a institution they've opened within MIT, which is only looking at future engines, and they're focusing only on hydrogen and methanol and biofuels, nothing else. So that is where the future lies. You see, EV also, we must all realize that after all, electricity also is coming through some other means. Unless we look at nuclear power, we are actually going to burn a lot of coal to create the kind of electricity that we need in our own country. And there are a lot of research available how EVs may not be the right future, how the right future may actually dwell around other biofuels, other forms of renewables, and maybe solar. So really speaking, we have to give it a deep thought on these issues to be able to come up with something spectacular on this. But what I would like to say is that when we look at an emerging technology scenario, I think we need to get our focus right over the next 15, 20 years. And if we have that right, I think we can make some major strides there, but start taking some baby steps of what I've said, condition monitoring. What Israel does, you add value to an equipment and make it talk. Put in built-in test equipment. So moment you switch on, it gives you a quick health check and says, go ahead. Or it says, sorry, you're going to have a problem here. It points out your weak links, which you're able to address, or it may call for a maintenance agency. So I think when we look at technology landscape, that is where we need to focus. The focus has to be more into automation and autonomy and less into human efforts. And of course, I'd pick up what Ranjit said and what even Murali said. Quality is very important, and I think we are very quality conscious also. When it comes to producing quality, we have the abilities and the capability to do it. We have all done it, even in the defense forces. I mean, our base workshops have produced some brilliant stuff, and all the base workshops in all three services, after all, a lot of equipment is working over 50 years only because of the kind of quality that we produce. Yes, there will be slippages which are there everywhere, but that does not qualify for it. But I think the second big thing is that we need to certify our human resource. That means who's a grade A, grade B, grade C technician, and each one of them therefore has a focus to get into the outstanding grade A or whatever we may like to call it. So we need to have these certifying agencies which will look at, and I think a combination of all this will give us the necessary foundation and bandwidth to go global. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And now the final question, which I'm going to ask all the panelists, and then after that, along with whatever you have to say, when you finish saying it, also give your closing remarks so that we will then after that end this panel discussion. So it is emerging from these discussions that there's a totally new thing which seems to have come up. I feel, though we have touched upon it, and it's a low-hanging fruit to you use that word again here, and it is the aspect of training, which was brought up by Mr. Pradeep Gupta. Then this aspect of asymmetry also he talked about, asymmetry of information. Mr. Pradeep Gupta talked about that. Gaps we have all been talking about in some way or other. The aspect of it being a complex and a challenging aspect. This also was talked about. General Ashok said that we could look at the assessment of the entire profile of a place. So from a strategic point of view, and see how they can be helped to bring in MRO. And so it does appear to me that this is something which we are very good at. We are very good at training. We are very good at, I was myself commandant of MCEME. And we do a tremendous job. East European, erstwhile East European, what we used to call, and West European, and you name it, and we are able to do it in so much so. And we train our people and they are able to work independently. So we are good at that. We have got a top-notch institution, which I personally am very closely aware of. And I know the others are as good. So why is it not there in the civil? So my question now specifically to the panel is very specific question is, do you feel MRO as a subject is needed to be included at the undergraduate, postgraduate level? And I'm talking about the entire thing, starting from the overall profile assessment, of a set of equipment in a particular country, then coming out to a solutions as to what can be addressed, and then specifics of training people, and how do we tell them what are the disciplines we should look at, what are the subjects we should look at, and can through our forum we suggest to the training institutes of this country that they should seriously consider if there's such a demand for our HR, and we are looking at this expanding, maybe this is an area which we can go into. So anybody who would like to address this? Anybody? Anil Kapoor, go ahead, please.
In fact, when we were discussing the MRO Digest, you recall we talked of a MRO Academy. I think there is a dire need to have, at least with the OEMs, the principal OEMs must have a MRO Academy. There is no doubt in my mind. Because, and the second is academia industry interface. I think every mega industry must, if I may use the word, adopt academic institutions and carry out research into future.
Thank you, Anil Kapoor. Now I'll request Air Commodore Murali to go ahead, please.
Sir, I think all of us have unanimously agreed that technology insertion takes place at MRO. So having seen that, I recently had an opportunity to speak to the IIT Mumbai at an invited talk, and there it was quite interesting for the type of questions these boys asked. And I told them that I took some examples and told them that how the technology insertion at MRO becomes a design drivers for the development community, like the scientists who are going to become, or most of them are going to be in that. And also the results coming out from MROs are going to be a catalyst for improvements. So because that is a proven platform which you are getting of having introduced something, an upgrade or a modification in an MRO, it flies and comes back to you with a result. And that result is your confidence. So this is where we have to get the academia in, and we have to tell the academia, you won't get a better platform than MRO to get into a improved design, which improves with time. So that is how if you look at it, how the Boeing versions are improved from 707 to today the 787 is because of feedback from these MROs. So that is one thing. And I would also like to say that the gaps between the servicing or overall, whatever you call it, the MRO does, it is narrowing down now. If you look at a latest fighter or helicopter, because of the technology, high levels of technology intensity levels which has been incorporated in those flying products, or for that matter, the land-based systems or the marine systems, the gaps of servicing is reducing. But so that means the product is available for flying or for operations for a larger time without visiting the MRO. But when it visits MRO, the checks are very, very highly intensive, especially on the entity side, as well as sort of refurbishment side. The replacements are very, very mandated, and the technology materials are so high end and also so complex and unconventional, like composite ceramic matrix. So this is going to be the future. So we need to have that technology very much available at MROs, and which should be integrated with the academia. That's all I want to say.
Thank you very much, Air Commander Murali. Anil Ghosh, please go ahead.
So I'll combine the two issues, the one which I did cover in the last, that is the disruptive technologies, as well as the teaching, training, HR training for MRO. So I think we should get back to the basic question of designing a particular equipment or weapon platform in terms of the factors of reliability, availability, maintainability, and dependability, in which now we should add that fifth factor of disruptive technologies, because as the discussion has just brought out, that the technology insertion of the latest at that particular time frame when it is coming up for a MRO activity, more or less as a overall activity where you are undertaking either certain amount of modification, refurbishment, or overall, and technology insertion, or later life extension, as General Kapoor brought out, we are pulling them on. So at each of these stages, you want the latest technology to get to come in. So when this Make in India business is starting, and they have given a lot of directions in terms of have methods to have plug and play with spiral development of the whole process. So this is the time when also we should look at MRO training to not the legacy system, maybe whichever is immediately coming up, to get the training on for the HR. Whereas these are essential, and similarly now disruptive technology will become essential, and the latest disruptive technology, when it comes up for overall, will become more critical. So that is a time when all these techniques and processes which have either evolved or high-end materials, all these are finding a mention in the DAP. You will put in AI, you will put in silicon chips, you will put in high-end materials and all that. That's okay. But this is only for formulating your SQRs today, so that in your development cycle, by the time it comes up, these things are matured and they have got plugged in. But when the MRO comes up after another 20 years or 30 years, after the thing has been exploited, that is the time we have to go in for HR training in MRO. And from there will come the ideas and innovations and the mind of innovative solutions to push it into that particular equipment in terms of our technology insertions. Thank you.
Thank you, General Ghosh. Mr. Pradeep Gupta, go ahead.
Thank you, General Matharu. Regarding the carrying forward this branch of MRO as skilling in MRO technologies and educating people, I remember about 3-4 decades ago, there was a branch in IIT Madras and PG in MTech of tribology, basically for friction engineering. So there was a focus of this. And what I understand as an engineer is that the MRO is a little different to the production technologies. Because in MRO, you see the holistic and a lot of other parts are there which the production engineer or the designer may not be knowing about it fully because it's a outsourced component. But you as the user of that equipment, you know it very well, how it has behaved over the period of its life, 10 years, 20 years, whatever. So the MRO skill is an asset to us of the armed forces officers. I'm limiting to that. Maybe in the civil sector also, they have for the aircraft. But as far as the armed forces equipments are concerned, cutting across the 3 services, the land system, the Navy, and the air system, you all have wonderful experience. Now we can use that, at least package that knowledge and share with others immediately how to do it. Now, there are latest technologies available, disruptive technologies, what General Ghosh has told. You can use VR, AR thing to train those people there in that land, even without traveling. So MRO Digest can tie up in that manner. Now, how to build that training capsule, Murali will know very well that because he is the hands-on man for that MRO. So those things we can prepare something and share. That is the global connect. Immediately we can do. Certainly industry will take its own time because it is not alone standalone thing. So when all wheels move, then only the MSME will prosper. The more and more MSMEs will come. So we can build this knowledge and introduce your idea of introducing MRO as a subject is very wonderful. It can be, should be done. But before it is done, we can start our own thing. And hopefully it carries forward. This is all what I want to say. And this is my closing remark too.
Thank you, Mr. Pradeep Gupta. Now the last speaker, last as I say, but not the least, General Ashok, please.
Thank you, sir. I will like to say that, unless you have quality MRO, you will not have a mission reliable equipment. In case you don't have mission reliable equipment, you will lose the war. There is just no doubt about it. And if MRO is that important, so naturally its training should be equally focused that much. Now, this statement per se, may appear generic, but why it is not happening? Because in our scheme of things, not only in India and in other countries also, the MRO people who are doing the hands-on job on the floor, they have not been given the requisite degree of respect and the relevant place in the our functioning. If you see our system, Vishwakarma, who is supposed to be the engineer of gods, he is also a god who executes things. But in our scheme of things, we in fact try to give the engineering degree to the officers who manage the things. But the ones who are going to do the execution portion, them we feel that they are adequately trained, even if they are trained in polytechnics, or they are produced of ITIs, or they are given some hands-on training. I think this, the entire narrative has to change by 2 things. Firstly, those people who are doing this job, they have to be given preeminence place in the organization and the society. And second, that the training has to be of the highest standard, because only then we can be assured of the quality MRO, quality equipment, quality war-winning model, and having national repute, the place we wish to reach. So that is what I wish to say on this particular issue, sir.
Thank you very much to all the panelists. With that, we come to the end of this particular panel discussion. And I must say that listening to this essence, this wisdom coming from all the panelists has been a singular pleasure for me. And it has also been quite eye-opener in many ways, because it's a complex subject, but many way forwards are emerging from this. And we keep on saying in MRO Digest that we in MRO Digest feel that MRO is a can contribute in a big way to comprehensive national power. And those of the viewers who have listened to this may like to go back to each panelist's views on this, and you have got gems of wisdom in them, which are obvious. And so you will get, no matter which area you are in, whether you are in industry or whether you are advising in policy or whether you are in education, you will get a lot of leads from here and use them. In the show notes below, we will be giving you the links to the profiles of all the panelists. You're welcome to contact them. And I feel that in my closing remark, I would say that certainly MRO as a subject at undergraduate and postgraduate as a complete holistic subject is the need of the hour. And I feel that with this new concept of professors of practice, you can see the wisdom which is there in this panel, and there are a lot of members in our group who carry equal wisdom. Those of them who would like to step out and come across to the academia as a professor of practice, because they have our members have not only got the ability to teach and to guide, but they have got hands-on experience of decades, which can really become a very, very good strengthening of the industry-academia link, which has not been that great, I would say, in our country. We can really improve upon that, and our members from MRO Digest can certainly contribute, I feel, towards that. So once again, I thank all the panelists for giving their such wonderful ideas and thoughts. And with that, we close this discussion. Thank you, everybody. Jai Hind.